Hey guys, so this is a video for when you start to block out and do your lip sync. You can have a video that's open on the side, but it's really nice to have a video that's inside if you're using your video reference and you're really trying to match it up. It really just depends on what your animation is. But this one will work out pretty well. So let's say we actually have captured our video and we have this big file. And the file itself is pretty big, it's pretty large, and it's about a gig when we captured it down. And we could see we have the whole video. And let's just say that for whatever reason, we were going to use this character as the reference of what the motions are. But in your case, this will be videos that you record or different reference videos and footage that you will collect. I would advise you not to animate something that's already been animated. This is where you're going to film. But let's say you have your film and you have your sound and you want to match those, but let's just use this as an example. Okay. The problem with this one is that this is a huge file, and for Maya, we need to separate the video and the sound. The video will be a texture, and the sound will be a sound wave inside of the timeline. This is 1 gig, so it's fairly big, and if your machine is a little bit slower, it may have a hard time running a big video like that through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go into After Effects, and I'm just going to actually kill all this because I was doing it before. Delete. Yes. And it's all clean now. There we go. And I'm going to take that video, that 1 gig video. You see I have a few little examples. I was testing out some different codecs for it to see which one works. And I'm going to take the Incredibles 2 video. That's 1 gig. It's ginormous. And that'll take a second for it to load in there. And now it's in there. So I'm inside of After Effects. Now I'm going to drag this video into my project at the bottom, or my composition. So I drag the video from the content, I put it in here, and I'm going to drag that right into here. Boom. And I can scrub, left mouse click and drag, and you can see it. It's pixely because it has to load it up. If I want to test it, I can hit the space bar. And we can see it's loading it up and playing it in there. So we have a lot of excess sound here we want to get rid of. He doesn't really say, where's my super suit, until he sees it not there. So if I go to right about here, and I'm going to take this little bar, this trim, and pull it to there. And I can use my this guy right here to kind of scrub in and see, make sure. And I'll just move. I'll scrub to that point and see if that's about where I want it. And I think that works pretty good. It gives us just a little bit of time before he starts talking. And maybe he could be pushing in a drawer or something, the character. So I right click in this and I say trim comp to work area. And now that's pretty much the whole video that I want. And now it's time to export this out. Okay. So what I'm going to do is because now it's trimmed right to where I want it. I'm going to go into composition, and I'm going to say add to render queue, Control M. And these are my settings, and that basically means I'm going to render this out as another movie that's shortened. But I want to change because Maya is not going to dig necessarily ABI. QuickTime is much better. So what we're going to do is where it says output module, click lossless. And here is where we're going to change what type of movie file we're going to spit out. So where it says AVI, I want to export this out as a QuickTime. And where it says format options, this is the codec. The codec is basically how it's compressed. Now you see I have a lot in here. Depending on what computer you have, depending on what software you have, you're going to see different codecs. Okay, I have a lot of stuff, so I have a lot of codecs that are in here. If you're working on your machine at home, you may have fewer. But there are some standard typical ones that come with After Effects or are on the school computers or we're using. And they basically are for different things. For what we're doing, normally I would use like an MPEG-4, which compresses video down really nicely to a very small file size. But the problem is that when I'm playing it inside of Maya, it has a problem trying to decompress it to show the movie. So the two I would suggest is animation or H.264. I'm choosing H.264. And the reason I'm choosing that is because the animation codec plays really well, but it also makes a pretty large file size, and I want to try and keep this file size down. So I'm going to use H.264, and I'm going to hit OK. And amazingly enough, just to keep the file size down, I'm not going to spit out audio this time. I'm going to tell it no audio output. And that'll make the movie file smaller because I need to bring in a separate file that's going to be my sound. So this is going to be just the video with no sound. And I hit OK. And that just preps this. It hasn't made it until I hit render, but this just preps it. Now I want to do a second one of these. And I want to make sure that this little guy is going to the second one's just going to be an export of sound. But before I do that, just so we know, I'm just going to say, click on this where it's asking what do I want to name it, output to, and it already knows it's a movie file. So I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to change it. Let's just say, just so I have so many freaking names in here, I'm just going to say frozone underscore vid for video. Okay. Now I'm going to Control D to duplicate it. And now we have the second one. And the second one, I'm going to go in. And this one is actually going to be in the format a WAV file. And of course, I do want the audio. So that means it's going to omit and get rid of, oops, render queue. It's going to get rid of the video. This one gets rid of the sound. This one gets rid of the video. We're going to take both these files. Let me change the name of this one to frozone underscore sound. Oops. There we go. And we need the Z in there, otherwise it's a very strange name. There we go. So frozone sound wave. So this is a wave file. This is a movie file. This is my video. This is my sound. Okay. And now I can render both of those out. So it'll plow through and render each one because I had them both checked. And it should spit out both those movies into the target folder that I had it from. So it takes a second, and a few seconds it'll spit out the movie. Then the sound is going to be like super fast. So movie's done. Sound. That's super fast, just like I said. So now I go back into Maya. And if we see here, the sound file is only 1 meg. The video is 70 megs, but that is way, way, way smaller than the 1 gig that it was before. And even the one that was at animation codec. So much smaller file, easier for you to transport, less time when you're saving files. So now let's pull in those files. First, I'm going to pull in the sound. File, import, Frozone sound wave, import. And here it is. So the original sound file, I clipped it a little bit closer. I'm just going to do a quick tweak to her keyframes. So I'm going to take all these keys and just, oops. There we go. There we go. That's better. I just moved those over. Shift select with the move tool, grab the left mouse button, and I can move all those keys. I turned on the Andy All so I would get all the keyframes of her body and head so I could move them all simultaneously. Now let's just see. There, that works. And I can turn this off now. None. Because I don't want to keep that on, because otherwise, every time I press S, I'm going to key all of her if that's set to on. So I switched it back off. I only turned it on just to move all those keyframes to sync it with the video. So now we've got the sound in. We've got it timed out. Now I have to set up the video. So I'm going to create a polyplane. I'm going to rotate it. And move it back a little bit so I can see it easier. The scale is totally up to you, and we'll adjust it once the video is on there. So I created a plane, right click, assign new material. And now we're going to do a Maya Lambert. And inside of that Lambert, under color, I want to bring in that movie, that video file. But I'm not going to choose just a regular file. I'm going to go here and type in movie. It'll take a second because my hard drive is like waking up and going, hey, what are you doing? There it is. So here it is here. My video is still here, or my plane is still here. You just can't see it because there's nothing connected to it. Now, inside of the image name, I'm going to go to where I stored that video, Frozone vid. And there it is there. I can scale this to fit whatever the aspect ratio I need. But you'll notice when I play, it's not doing anything. And that's because the last thing I need to do to make that animate with the timeline is to turn on use image sequence. And now it matches every frame of the video with the frame that I'm currently on. So if I go now, and now I can use that as a blockout. That's all I really need to do. So just a real quick recap. We went into After Effects. We brought our video into the content, just dragged it into here. Then when we had it, we dragged the video, the movie, into here, which made the composition. So that's the QuickTime, the movie we dragged in. It created a composition, which is like a group of layers, so I could have multiple layers and effects and all sorts of things. And then we cropped it down by moving this little guy to where we want it to start. Right-clicked in that gray bar, and then said trim. You'll see if I adjust it, I have the option of trimming the comp to the work area. That's fine. Just leave that. Then with it selected, I went to Composition, Add to Render Queue, which dropped it into this little folder. And I went under the output module, lossless, clicked on it, and changed the type of video to QuickTime and the codec to, in this case, H.264, and then named it, in this case, Frozone Movie right here. I then duplicated that with it selected, Control D, and then changed that one, its output, to a wave. Also to note, on the original one, on the movie one, I unchecked it and made it so that the audio would not be coming in. So I didn't have like two of the same audio files, even though I'd only hear one. It's just wasting space and processing. And then once I had those guys in there, and I renamed this one, and they both go into the same folder, Frozone Vid, a movie file, Frozone Sound, a wave file, and I hit render. And once that render was in, I imported the wave file, which then showed up in my timeline. If you ever open up your file and you're like, hey, it turned off, I can right click, it's still in there if you saved it, and just go Frozone Sound, and there it pops it back in and turns it on. So a lot of times people keep re-importing it. When they look under sound, they'll have 20 of the same sound file. It's in there. And then I made a plane, right-clicked and assigned a new material, which I made a Lambert. Inside the color, clicked on that, typed in movie, and it gives me this movie node. And then I bring that movie in, and then checked use image sequence to make sure it animates. Let me know if you have any questions, but that's pretty much it. And this is just if you want the video to be inside of Maya while you're scrubbing through so you can have a reference. Otherwise, if you're just looking at some of the motions and it doesn't have to be synced in entirely, you can actually just have shrink Maya down so it's a little bit smaller and have the QuickTime movie next to it. But you won't be able to scrub and see if you're matching, like if you filmed yourself and got the references in. Okay, try it out.